Smoke covered the broken city. Shadows moved between the ruins. Fires burned where houses once stood, and silence ruled the streets. Only the sound of falling stone and the wind carried through the empty place. Among the ruins, a young alien girl, named Lyra, hid under a broken stall. Her small body shook from fear and hunger. Her large eyes looked at the streets that once were filled with life. Now only dust and broken walls remained. She held nothing in her hands, nothing in her pockets, nothing in her world. Her family was gone. Her mother's voice had been lost in the attack. Her father's strong hands no longer protected her. Even her little brother's laughter had disappeared. All she had was emptiness and the silence of death around her. The invaders had come without warning, ships from the sky, soldiers with weapons that glowed like fire. They destroyed everything. They killed without mercy, and when they left behind only ashes. Lyra was alone. She had no food. She had no water. Her stomach hurt. Her lips were dry. But worse than hunger was fear. Every shadow felt like an enemy. Every sound felt like death. She told herself she must not cry. If she cried, the raiders would hear. If she cried, the monsters would return. So she stayed silent, her tears falling inside her heart, not on her face. Then, in the distance, footsteps echoed. Slow, steady, heavy. Someone was walking through the smoke. Lyra held her breath. She pressed her small body against the wall, trying to disappear into the ruins. A figure appeared through the gray dust. Tall, strong, different. Not one of her people, not one of the raiders. This figure was something else. It was a human. Lyra had heard of humans before. Stories whispered in markets, tales told by elders. Humans were called dangerous. They were said to be fierce, impossible to defeat. Some said humans were monsters wearing skin. Others said humans were clever, cunning, always planning. But no story had ever spoken of humans with kindness. The human walked slowly, looking around the ruins. He wore armor scratched by battle, his steps heavy but steady. On his back was a weapon larger than Lyra's whole body. His face was tired, lines of pain written across it. But his eyes, though sharp, carried something different, something Lyra had not seen for many days, something almost gentle. She froze, her heart beating like a drum inside her chest. Was he friend or enemy? Would he help her or finish what the raiders had started? The human stopped. He looked directly toward the broken stall. Lyra's body turned cold. She knew he had seen her, her breath caught in her throat. Should she run? Should she fight? Should she beg? But the human did not raise his weapon. He did, not shout or move with anger. Instead, he slowly bent down. From his pack, he pulled out a small container of water. He placed it on the ground. Then he pulled out a piece of food wrapped in cloth. He placed that on the ground too, and then he stepped back. Lyra blinked. This was not what she expected. No one had ever left her food since the attack. No one had ever given her water. The human was strange, dangerous, unknown, and yet he offered life, not death. Still, she did not move. Her stomach screamed for food. Her throat burned for water, but her fear was stronger. What if it was a trick? What if the human only wanted her to come out so he could catch her? The human seemed to understand her fear. He did not speak loudly. He only said one word in a soft voice. Safe. Then he stood, slowly turned, and walked away. His heavy steps faded into the distance. His shadow disappeared into the smoke. Lyra looked at the food and water on the ground. Her body shook. Her mind argued, was this real? Could a human truly show kindness? Or was it just another trap in this cruel world? She reached out slowly, her hand trembling. Her fingers touched the container. It was real. It was cold. She opened it and drank. The water filled her dry mouth. Tears finally fell from her eyes, not from fear but from relief. For the first time since her world had ended, someone had given her something, not pain, not fire, not loss, but hope and that hope came from the last place she expected. From a human. Night fell slowly over the ruined city. The sky was dark, filled with smoke and the fading light of fire. Lyra sat hidden, the small container of water still in her hands. She had drunk carefully, every sip tasting like life itself. Beside her, the food wrapped in cloth waited, but her mind still argued with her heart. Could she trust it? Could she trust him? The human was gone now, his footsteps long faded into silence, yet his image remained in her thoughts. The tall figure, the quiet eyes, the word he had spoken. Safe. No one had spoken to her in days. No one had shown her kindness since the world ended. The memory of that single word warmed her chest. Even as the night grew cold, she finally opened the cloth and looked at the food inside. It was strange, different from the food of her people, but hunger was stronger than fear. She ate carefully, chewing slowly. It was dry, rough, but it filled her stomach. For the first time since the attack, she did not feel the sharp pain of emptiness inside her. Yet her mind was restless. Why would a human help her? The story said humans were violent. They destroyed everything. But this human had given her life, not death. He could have ignored her. He could have killed her. Instead, he had offered water, food, and a single gentle word. The more she thought, the more curious she became. Where was he going? Why was he here alone in the ruins? And most important, would he return? Hours passed and the cold night grew sharper. Lyra pulled her thin arms around her chest, shivering. Her small shelter gave no warmth, no safety. In the silence, she felt the truth. If she stayed alone, she would not survive many more nights. Her body was weak, her hope weaker. She needed something, someone. And her thoughts returned again to the human. Finally, she made her choice. With quiet steps, she left the broken stall and moved into the streets. The stones were rough beneath her feet, the shadows deep and endless. But she followed the direction the human had walked. Every sound of the night made her heart race. Every shadow felt like it carried danger. Still, she pressed on, driven by hunger, fear, and something she did not fully understand. Hope. It took hours, but at last she saw a faint light. A small fire glowed in the distance. Her heart leapt and her steps slowed. Could it be him? She crept closer, her body low, hiding behind broken walls and fallen stone. And then she saw him. The human sat beside a small fire, his armor set aside. He held a cloth against his arm, blood showing dark against his skin, even in the dim light. She could see his face was tired. Lines of pain cut across his features, but his eyes were steady as he worked to clean the wound. Lyra's breath caught. He was injured. The mighty figure who had seemed so powerful in the ruins was bleeding. Alone, she waited, unsure what to do. Her people had always feared humans, yet here was one, wounded and still alive after fighting monsters she could not face. If he could survive, maybe she could too. The human looked up suddenly, his eyes sharp. He had heard her. Lyra froze, her body pressed against the wall, her heart hammered, but he did not raise his weapon. Instead, he spoke, his voice calm but strong. "I know you are there." She stayed silent. Her legs trembled, but she did not run. The human placed the cloth aside and reached slowly into his pack. From it, he pulled out a small blanket. He set it near the fire, his movements slow, careful. Then he leaned back and said softly, "It's warmer here." Lyra's throat tightened. He was offering again, first water, then food, now warmth. Why? What did he gain from this? No one had ever given her anything without asking something in return. Was this real kindness or another trap? Her body moved before her mind decided step by step. She left the shadows and came closer. The firelight touched her face, and for the first time the human saw her clearly. Her small frame, her wide, fearful eyes, the dirt and tears that marked her skin. He did not laugh. He did not shout. He only gave a small nod, as if to say, "I expected you." She stopped just beyond the circle of firelight. Her eyes stayed on him, ready to flee if he moved too fast, but he only pushed the blanket a little closer. "Cold," he said simply. Lyra hesitated, then stepped forward. She picked up the blanket, her hands shaking. It was soft, warmer than anything she had felt since the attack. She wrapped it around herself, and her body finally relaxed. For the first time, the night air did not feel like knives against her skin. The human did not ask her name. He did not tell her his. He simply sat, feeding the fire, letting silence fill the space between them. But to Lyra, it was not an empty silence. It was a safe one. And as she sat near the fire, wrapped in the human's blanket, a thought entered her mind. A thought she had not dared to believe before. Maybe, just maybe, she was not alone anymore. The fire burned low, its soft light pushing back the night. Lyra sat wrapped in the human's blanket, her body still tense though her eyes grew heavy. It was the first time since the invasion that she had felt a little warmth, a little safety. But safety was dangerous because safety could be broken. The human, Marcus, worked silently, cleaning his wound with steady hands. He never looked at her for long, as if he knew too much attention would scare her. Instead, he focused on the fire, the bandages, the empty dark around them. Lyra watched him, every movement, every breath. Her people had always spoken of humans as violent and greedy, yet here was one who gave her water, food, and even warmth. He had asked for nothing in return. Why? Her mind whispered warnings. He is human. He will betray you. He is strong. You are weak. If you stay, he will use you. But her heart whispered something else. He saved you. He shared with you. He could have hurt you, but did not. Hours passed, and the night grew colder. Marcus leaned back against the stone wall, his weapon close at hand. His eyes closed for a moment, then opened again as if sleep was dangerous. Lyra understood that feeling. She had not slept properly in many nights. Sleep meant death if raiders returned. Sleep meant never waking up again. But here, near the human's fire, her eyelids grew heavy. For the first time, she felt her body relax. She let herself drift for a moment into darkness. When she woke, the fire had burned lower. Marcus was still awake, sitting quietly, watching the night. He had not touched her, not moved closer. The blanket still wrapped around her shoulders. Untouched, she realized something strange. He had guarded her while she slept. A human had protected her, a child not of his kind. Her stomach growled, loud in the silence. Marcus turned his head, and instead of anger, a small smile touched his tired face. From his pack he pulled another piece of food and placed it near her. He did not force her to take it. He only set it down and returned his eyes to the fire. The choice was hers. Always hers. Lyra looked at the food, then at him. Every moment with him made her question the stories she had been told. Humans were dangerous, yes, but this human was dangerous in a different way. He was dangerous because he made her hope again, and hope was something she had thought was dead. The hours dragged on until dawn touched the broken sky. A pale light spread across the ruins. Marcus stood and put out the fire. He picked up his pack and weapon. Then he looked at her and spoke, his voice calm and firm. "I move now," he said. "You can stay, or follow." Lyra's heart froze. The words hit her harder than the cold air. Stay, or follow. The choice was hers. If she stayed, she would be alone again, alone in the ruins, with no food, no water, no protection. The raiders would return, or hunger would finish her. If she followed, she would be with him. But he was human, and humans were not to be trusted. Her people had taught her this since she was born. What if he betrayed her later? What if his kindness was only a mask? She looked at him, his strong frame, his tired face, his steady eyes. He had given her water when she was dying of thirst. He had given her food when she was starving. He had given her warmth when the cold had cut into her bones. He had asked for nothing, demanded nothing. Even now he gave her the choice. Lyra's chest tightened. Her legs shook as she stood, the blanket still around her shoulders. For a long moment she did not move. Then, Slowly, she stepped forward, one step, then another, until she stood near him. Her voice was weak, almost lost in the morning air. I will follow, she whispered. Marcus gave a small nod, no surprise in his eyes. He adjusted the strap of his pack and turned toward the road of broken stone. Lyra followed, her small steps quick to keep up with his longer ones. Every sound of the ruins still made her heart jump, but now she was not alone. She had chosen to walk beside the human. As they moved through the city, Marcus spoke little. Sometimes he pointed out safe paths. Sometimes he stopped and listened. His senses were sharp, always searching for danger. Lyra realized that his silence was not coldness. It was caution. The silence of someone who had survived many battles. When they reached an open street, Lyra froze. On the ground lay broken machines, the remains of the invaders, their metal shells twisted and burned. Marcus stopped too, his hand resting on his weapon. He studied the wrecks with sharp eyes, then motioned. For her to stay close, Lyra obeyed, pressing near his side. The world was still broken, still dangerous, but with every step, she felt something growing inside her, something she had thought was gone forever. It was not only survival, it was not only fear, it was the fragile beginning of trust. And as they walked together into the morning light, Lyra knew one truth. She had made her choice, and that choice had changed everything. The morning light grew stronger as they walked. Broken towers cast long shadows across the streets. The air smelled of smoke and ash, and the silence felt heavy. Too heavy. Marcus walked in front, every step careful, his eyes scanning every corner. Lyra stayed close behind, clutching the blanket tight around her shoulders. For a while, the ruins were empty. Only the sound of their footsteps echoed between the fallen walls. But Marcus's sharp movements told Lyra he felt something. The way he paused at corners, the way his hand never left his weapon. It made her heart race. She whispered, "Is someone here?" Marcus didn't answer. He only raised a hand, telling her to stay quiet. That silence was worse than words. It meant danger. They passed a broken bridge. The stones cracked and burned, and then Lyra heard it. The crunch of metal boots on stone. Far away but moving closer, voices followed, harsh and cruel, speaking in the tongue of raiders. Her stomach twisted with fear. The raiders were back. Marcus's eyes narrowed. He motioned for her to follow him quickly into the shadows of a collapsed building. They crouched low behind a half-broken wall. Lyra's hands shook as she pressed herself against the cold stone. The voices grew louder, echoing through the street. The raiders walked in a loose line, their armor dark, their weapons ready. They laughed as they searched, their words sharp like knives. Lyra remembered their fire, their cruelty. Her chest tightened, her breath caught in her throat. If they found her again, they would not let her live. Marcus placed a steady hand on her shoulder. His grip was strong but calm. It told her, stay still, stay silent. Even in her fear, she trusted that touch. The raiders stopped near the broken bridge. One of them bent down, picking something from the ground. It was a wrapper from the human's food, dropped during the night. The raider snarled. Showing sharp teeth, he shouted to the others, and they spread out, searching harder. Marcus cursed under his breath. He had been too tired, too careless. Now their trail was known. The raiders moved closer. One climbed onto the wreck of a machine, scanning the ruins. His eyes swept the area like hunting flames. Lyra felt her heart beat so hard it hurt. If his gaze fell on her hiding place, it would be the end. Marcus slowly adjusted his weapon. His eyes locked on the raider above. He whispered, almost too quiet to hear, "If they find us, run." Lyra wanted to protest. Run where? There was no safety out there, only death. But she bit her lip and stayed silent because Marcus's face was calm, and calm meant strength. The raider on the wreck shouted, suddenly pointing. His eyes had caught movement, not them, but close. The raiders rushed forward, weapons raised. Their heavy boots pounded against the stone. Marcus tensed, ready to strike. But just then, A piece of wall collapsed in the distance. The raiders turned toward the sound. For a moment, luck saved them. Marcus used the distraction. He touched Lyra's arm, signaling her to move. They slipped through the shadows, deeper into the ruins. Every step was heavy with fear. Every breath felt like it might give them away. But luck never lasted. As they turned a corner, two raiders appeared, their weapons lifted at once. Lyra froze in terror. The world seemed to stop. Marcus reacted first. His weapon roared, light flashing through the ruins. One raider fell. The other stumbled back, shouting. The noise exploded through the silence, and now every raider in the street knew where they were. "Run!" Marcus shouted, grabbing Lyra's hand. She ran, her legs pumping faster than ever before. The ruins blurred as fear pushed her forward. Behind them, the raiders roared and chased, their boots striking the ground like thunder. Marcus fired again, his shots echoing. Stone walls shattered. Sparks flew. The raiders answered with their own fire. Explosions lit the air, shaking the broken city. Lyra screamed as rubble fell around them. They ducked into a collapsed house, sliding behind broken beams. Marcus reloaded quickly, his face hard. Lyra clutched the blanket, her body shaking. This was no longer hiding. This was survival. The raiders closed in, their voices mocking. They thought they had trapped their prey. Lyra looked at Marcus. He was outnumbered. He was strong, yes, but there were too many. Her fear screamed inside her head. Run, run, save yourself. But another voice whispered, he protected you. He gave you life. Do not leave him. Her hands shook, her heart raced. She had no weapon, no strength. But she had a choice. She could run and hide again, or she could stand beside the human who had stood beside her. Marcus raised his weapon as shadows closed in. The fire of battle reflected in his eyes. Lyra's breath came fast. She knew this moment would decide her fate. Her fear told her to run, but her heart told her something else. This time she would not be a silent child hiding in ruins. This time she would fight, even if all she had was courage. And as the raiders' shadows fell over them, Lyra stepped forward, her voice shaking but loud. No more, she whispered. No more running. No more being helpless. The danger had found them, but so had her choice. The ruins shook with the sound of weapons. The raiders shouted, their voices filled with anger. Marcus fired again, his blasts tearing into the darkness. One raider fell, another staggered back, but still more came, shadows moving in from every side. Lyra's body trembled, yet she did not run. Her small hands gripped a broken piece of stone from the floor. Her mind screamed that it was useless against armed raiders, but her heart told her it was something more than fear. A raider leapt over the rubble, his blade raised. Lyra screamed and swung the stone with all her strength. The blow struck the raider's arm, making him stumble. It was not strong enough to defeat him, but it was enough for Marcus. He turned and fired, ending the threat before the blade could fall. For a moment the world stopped. Lyra stood frozen, the stone still in her hand. Her chest heaved, her eyes wide. She had not run. She had not hidden. She had helped. Marcus gave her a sharp look, half surprise and half respect. Good, he said simply, before turning back to the fight. That one word filled Lyra with strange strength. It was not much, but it was enough. The battle raged, fire and smoke filling the air. Together they moved, Marcus firing, Lyra watching his back. She could not fight like him, but she could warn him. Behind you. She cried once, and Marcus spun, blasting another raider before the strike could land. Fear still lived in her, but now courage lived beside it. At last, the last raider fell, silence returning to the ruins. The air smelled of burned stone and blood. Marcus lowered his weapon, his chest rising and falling heavily. Lyra dropped the stone, her small body shaking from exhaustion. For a long moment they both just stood there, breathing. Alive, slowly, Marcus turned to her. His face was serious, his eyes sharp, but then he gave a small nod. You stayed, he said, his voice calm but steady. Lyra swallowed hard, her throat dry. I could not run, she whispered. Marcus studied her for a moment, then said, Good. Again, his tone carrying approval, not anger. Those simple words warmed her more than any blanket. She had mattered. She had helped. She was not just a weak child hiding in shadows. They moved away from the battlefield, deeper into the ruins. Marcus found a hidden corner inside a half-collapsed building. He set down his pack and checked his weapon. Lyra sat nearby, her body aching but her spirit strangely light. She had fought beside a human, and together they had lived. The silence between them was no longer heavy. It was different now. It felt like the silence of two survivors who understood each other. Lyra pulled the blanket tighter around her and spoke softly. You could have left me." Marcus looked up, his tired eyes steady. "I don't leave children," he said simply. The words hit her heart harder than any weapon. No one had ever spoken like that to her, not since her family was taken. For the first time, she felt something she thought was gone forever. Trust. The day passed slowly, the sky above gray and heavy. Marcus shared his food with her again. She ate carefully, no longer fearing it was a trick. He showed her how to use the cloth to collect rainwater from broken pipes. He explained simple signs to stay safe, how to listen for danger, how to move quietly. Lyra listened closely, memorizing every word. These were lessons for survival, but more than that, they were lessons of trust. She noticed things about him too, the way he always checked corners before resting, the way his eyes scanned the horizon even when he ate, the way he kept his weapon close, yet never pointed it at her. He was always alert, always ready, but never cruel, never careless with her. At night, when they built another small fire, Lyra finally asked, "Why do you help me? I am not human." Marcus looked into the flames for a long time before answering. "Because kindness is stronger than fear," he said quietly. Lyra blinked, her chest tight. She had never heard such words before. Kindness, stronger than fear. Could that be true? As the fire crackled, Lyra whispered, "My people, they said humans are monsters." Marcus gave a small laugh, dry and tired. "Sometimes we are," he admitted, "but not always." He glanced at her, his eyes softer than before. "Sometimes we fight monsters too." Those words stayed in her heart long after the fire died. That night, when she closed her eyes, she did not feel completely alone. Her dreams were still full of smoke and fire. But somewhere, in them was also a blanket, a fire, and a human who had not left her behind. By the time the sun rose again, something had changed between them. They were no longer only a soldier and a child. No longer strangers, they were something more. Two survivors bound by trust. Two lives tied together by choice. And though the world outside was still broken and cruel, inside Lyra's heart, something new had begun. Something fragile, something rare. A bond. The days passed slowly. Each sunrise brought gray skies and the smell of ash. Each night carried shadows and the fear of raiders. But Marcus and Lyra survived. Together, he taught her simple skills. How to find safe paths, how to listen for danger, how to use broken metal to make a warning bell. Lyra learned quickly, her small hands steady, her eyes sharper than before. She was no longer the silent child hiding in ruins. She was a survivor, and she was not alone. But even as they grew closer, Marcus grew quieter. Sometimes at night, he would sit apart from the fire, staring at the sky. His face was hard, his eyes distant, as if he carried a weight too heavy for words. Lyra noticed, but she was afraid to ask, afraid the answer would break the fragile peace they had found. One morning, everything changed. Marcus's communicator crackled to life. A voice came through. Sharp, official. "Captain Marcus, report. Fleet departure in 48 hours. Lyra froze. "Fleet departure leaving." Marcus pressed the device to his ear. He spoke in short words, clipped and professional. "Yes. Survivors minimal. Supplies low. Returning soon." When the voice faded, silence fell heavy. Lyra stared at him, her heart racing. You are leaving?" she whispered. Marcus looked at her, his face unreadable. "The fleet is pulling out," he said quietly. "I have orders to return." The words cut deeper than any blade. Return, leave, abandon. Her chest tightened. Tears burned her eyes. She shook her head. "No. No, you cannot," Marcus sighed, rubbing a hand across his face. "Lyra, I don't have a choice." "You always have a choice," she shouted, her voice breaking. "You chose to give me water. You chose to give me food. You chose not to leave me in the ruins." Her words echoed through the broken building. Marcus looked at her, guilt flickering in his eyes. But he said nothing. Because duty was pulling him in one direction, and her heart was pulling him in another. The day grew long, the silence heavier. Lyra barely touched the food he shared. She sat by the wall, her arms around her knees. She remembered the first night she had followed him. The first fire, the first blanket, the first word. Safe. It had been real. It had saved her. And now he would leave, just like the rest of the world had. That night as the fire crackled, she whispered, "You are like them." Marcus frowned. "Like who?" "The raiders, the invader. They left me with nothing, and now, you will leave me too." Her words hit him harder than any enemy strike. For a long time he said nothing. He stared into the fire, his jaw tight, his hands clenched. Then he spoke, his voice low. "I am not like them." "Then prove it," she whispered. Her voice trembled, but her eyes did not look away. Marcus leaned back, his breath heavy. He thought of his orders, of the fleet waiting above, of the punishment that would come if he disobeyed, and then he thought of her, the small girl who had chosen to fight beside him, the child who had called him safe, the only survivor who still believed in him. The next day, he tried to keep distance. He spoke little, his steps quicker, as if he wanted to make her stronger for the moment he left. But every time he looked at her, her small frame keeping pace with his, her eyes filled with fragile hope. He felt the weight of choice pressing harder. By nightfall, he knew he could not avoid it any longer. He knelt by the fire, his weapon across his knees. "Lyra," he said, his voice heavy, "when the fleet leaves, you cannot stay here. You will not survive alone." Her eyes widened. "Then take me with you," she whispered, desperate. "I will work. I will help. I will not be a burden." Marcus shook his head. "It is not that simple. The fleet has rules. They will not take you." "Then break their rules," she said quickly. "You broke your own rules when you saved me." Her words struck like a blade of truth. He had already broken rules for her, and he knew he would break more. Silence stretched between them. The fire flickered, casting long shadows. At last Marcus spoke. "Lyra, you matter," he said. "You are not nothing, not anymore." Her heart stopped. No one had ever said that to her, not even her own people. But still the fear burned. Fear that when the moment came, he would leave her behind. Fear that kindness was only a dream, that she would wake and find herself alone again. That night, Lyra could not sleep. She lay awake, staring at the human soldier who had become her protector. Every second counted down in her mind, closer to the fleet's departure, closer to losing everything again. And though Marcus's words echoed in her heart, "You matter," her fear whispered louder, "He will go, he will leave, he will prove the story's true." But deep inside, another voice rose too. A small, fragile voice that refused to die. Maybe, just maybe, he will choose me instead. The final day arrived. The fleet's departure was only hours away. Above the gray skies, Marcus knew human ships, waited ready to leave this broken world. He had orders strict and unchanging, but orders had never felt heavier than they did now. Lyra walked silently beside him as they moved through the ruins. Her small face was pale, her eyes distant. Every step felt like a countdown to the moment he would leave. She tried not to look. At him she tried not to hope, but hope burned in her heart anyway, painful and bright. They reached the old landing site. Shattered metal and deep scars in the ground marked where human ships had once touched down. Now only one transport remained, waiting in silence. The communicator on Marcus's belt crackled again. "Captain Marcus, report. Final boarding in 1 hour." His chest tightened. 1 hour, one choice. He looked at Lyra, standing so small against the vast ruins. The blanket he had given her was wrapped tight around her shoulders. Her eyes met his, wide and frightened, but she did not beg. She did not cry. She only whispered. "You will go." Marcus clenched his fists. He thought of duty, of honor, of the rules that shaped soldiers. He thought of the punishment waiting for him if he disobeyed. But louder than all those thoughts was her voice from the night before. "You chose to save me." And he knew she was right. Every step of this journey had been choice. Not orders. Not rules choice. He crouched down to her level, his armor creaking. "Lyra," he said quietly. Her eyes shimmered with tears she tried to hold back. "I had nothing," she whispered. "I had no one. And then you came. If you leave me now, I will have nothing again." Her words struck like a knife to his chest. He reached out slowly, his hand resting on her small shoulder. "No child should be left behind," he said. The words came from deep inside him, heavier than any order. She gasped softly, her breath shaking. Then you will take me?" Marcus nodded once, firm. "I will take you." For the first time her tears fell freely, but they were not only tears of fear, they were tears of relief, tears of hope. Marcus lifted her into his arms. She was light, far too light. The weight of hunger and loss had made her small, but her spirit was strong, stronger than he had ever seen. He carried her toward the transport, his steps steady, each one a defiance of rules, each one a promise. The transport's engines hummed as he approached. The guard at the ramp frowned. "Captain, who is this?" Marcus's jaw tightened. "She is with me." "Regulations forbid unauthorized passengers," the guard said sharply. Marcus stepped closer, his eyes like steel. "Then write me down for breaking regulations," he said. "But she comes. Aboard." The guard hesitated. He saw the fire in Marcus's eyes, the kind of fire that did not bend. At last he stepped aside. "Very well, Captain. But this will follow you." Marcus walked past him without another word. Inside the transport, Lyra's wide eyes stared at the walls, the lights, the seats. She had never seen such things before. Her world had been rubble and fire. Now she was stepping into the sky. Marcus set her down gently. She gripped his hand, afraid to let go. He looked at her and gave a rare, small smile. "Safe," he said again, the same word he had spoken the first day. She nodded, tears still in her eyes. "Safe," she repeated, her voice stronger now. The engines roared, the ship lifted from the broken ground. Through the small window, Lyra saw her world shrinking below. The ruins, the smoke, the ashes, the place where she had been left with nothing. And now, she was leaving it behind. Her heart pounded as the stars came into view. Bright, endless, beautiful. For the first time, she felt the weight of the universe pressing around her, and instead of fear, she felt wonder. She looked up at Marcus, the human who had changed everything. Her voice shook as she whispered, "I had nothing until you gave me everything." Marcus looked at her, his eyes steady. "It wasn't everything," he said softly. "It was only kindness." But to Lyra, kindness was everything. Kindness had been stronger than fear, stronger than orders, stronger than the cruelty of raiders. Kindness had given her life. Kindness had given her a future. And as the ship carried them into the stars, she knew one truth. Her fate had been changed, not by power, not by weapons, but by the simple kindness of a human.